Why aren't you all still standing? I don't understand. I am just so happy to present the 2026 Hillman Prize for Journalism in the broadcast category to the Fifth Estate, Tax Hack, Identity Theft, the Denial Machine. What an incredible night to celebrate journalism. I do feel like I kind of got the short end of the stick talking about taxes, but or what are we, 7 days away? Did you file? Have you done it? But I promise this isn't about you, but it kind of is about you. It's a phone call that we all dread getting. It's the CRA or it's the bank, it's our mortgage lender, the credit card company. You're baffled, you're incredulous, confused, and frightened because it's clear that you have no idea what the person on the other end of the phone is talking about. It turns out that your social insurance number, your identity has been stolen. And now it's up to you to prove that you didn't take out that loan or collect that tax refund, that you didn't sign up for that credit card. It's a living nightmare. The personal stories that anchor the two-part series, Tax Hack, Identity Theft, the Denial Machine, they're harrowing. It's easy to feel like you are not watching investigative journalism when you watch this. It feels like this slow-building, ominous horror story unfolding. And if you know anything about horror, the scariest scenarios when you watch horror are ones where you could easily see yourself. When the Fifth Estate set out to tell the story of a series of large-scale data hacks that left over 62,000 Canadians vulnerable to scammers and fraudsters, at the core of their investigation was the Canadian Revenue Agency. A massive data leak opened the door to imposters hacking into CRA accounts, changing the vital statistics of their victims, their marital status, their addresses, and cashing in bogus tax returns. The scale of fraud involved millions and millions of dollars. Refunds were collected by thieves, while Canadians, as you saw, from all walks of life, were left alone to fight for their identities, clear their names, and avoid financial catastrophe. So the Fifth Estate team sought out some of those Canadians, and after hearing of their initial reporting, victims started coming to them. Once again, that trust comes up. The hope was to get to the bottom of what had become of their personal hell. Individuals who were days away from losing their homes or facing financial ruin, the team got down to the essence of investigative journalism. They listened. They combed through records, they asked hard questions, they became a voice for our neighbors, the victims. The hope would be that a government body tasked with safekeeping the private, personal, and financial details of each and every Canadian would make every possible effort to keep our data safe. The agency failed time and time again, and when confronted with the truth of their dereliction by the Fifth Estate, Revenue Canada stonewalled the Canadian public and left vulnerable Canadians to fend for themselves. The team pressed Revenue Canada for answers, and in return, the agency threatened the sources who came forward with knowledge of a problem that was years in the making. It turns out whistleblowers make wonderful scapegoats. Phase 2 of the Fifth Estate's investigation got underway in 2025. The investigation pressed on, and then an anonymous tipster pointed the team in the direction of Interior Health in British Columbia, an employer of tens of thousands of healthcare professionals. Over 28,000 of these workers had their data leaked, resulting in widespread identity fraud. The individuals told reporters stories of loans being taken out in their names, businesses being opened. I said their businesses were being opened in their names. Financial purgatory was not the only outcome for the victims. One nurse traced the hack of her CRA account to an H&R Block location. She was arrested later that year for crimes her imposter committed, and that was in 2022. The reported hack took place sometime around 2009. I'll say it again, the hack took place in 2009. So these folks have been dealing with this for years and years and years, and it's still unfolding. Lives left in disarray for decades with very little recourse. The two-part series is mind-bogglingly frustrating to watch. It's also frightening and should give us all pause. When reporter Mark Kelly confronted the agencies about the hacks, asking not only the hard questions, but the right questions on behalf of Canadians, the answers were far from adequate. The reporting in this series was meticulous, the storytelling beyond compelling. FOI requests were filed and they were refiled. Court cases were uncovered from across the country. They tapped into sources that were able to bring all the pieces together from coast to coast to coast. The relief that these victims felt in just being heard and believed by the team, it was palpable. As I watched, and maybe as you will see, shame turns to vindication for these victims. That vindication turns to righteous anger. And the mechanism that usually flips that switch is simply being heard and being believed. The amplification of the stories of the everyday Canadians who were and are victims in this story, that's the CRA calling right now. Don't answer it. That's what I do anyway. The amplification of these stories of everyday Canadians who were and are victims in this story is at the heart of the why of journalism. The reporting was also able to move the needle. The team was able to identify and confront fraudsters. They uncovered fake shell companies and put the CRA on blast. A class action lawsuit is underway from victims of the Interior Health hack. One BC minister, I am sure, has recurring nightmares of Mark Kelly chasing her down while she trips over a way too big suitcase on her way to the airport. As always, on behalf of the judges, thank you to all of the terrific broadcast journalists who submitted work. It was an incredibly strong field of nominees, and you should all be very, very proud. But this year, boy, oh boy, stand proud, Fifth Estate. You knocked it out of the park. Congratulations.
Garvia, thank you so much, and Hillman colleagues. It's an honor to be speaking here on behalf of the Fifth Estate team and to receive the Hillman Award for journalism in the service of the common good. The two documentaries, Tax Hack and The Denial Machine, first began as a tip from a high-level government source. And as Alia knows, it wasn't an easy process. We almost lost the source. The source needed assurance, they backed away, they got cold feet, assurance that we were going to protect them at all costs, and we said we would. Our investigation eventually morphed as you saw from Garvia, morphed and expanded into what, at first blush, might have seemed like an impossible conspiracy theory that federal and provincial governments in Canada and their agencies had actively covered up a massive security breach for years, so breathtaking that it affected more than 28,000 healthcare workers in British Columbia. And that instead of admitting responsibility and taking action, those democratic government institutions that we expect to protect us repeatedly failed those workers and didn't tell them what they knew, that their own identity thefts were part of something much bigger. Instead, the workers were victim blamed. And in the case of the CRA, it repeatedly demanded that the victims pay back the money their imposters had stolen. In one case, a Fernie nurse was wrongly charged, fingerprinted, and had her mugshot taken after her imposter had used her name to steal from the Alberta Treasury. In another case, a bailiff showed up at a victim's residence on a Sunday morning and was told his house would be seized. Ironically, as governments, federal and provincial, deduct responsibility, it was a source identifying themselves as anonymous who said they were a former criminal who came forward to tell the truth. That there indeed had been a massive breach of government data. And they asked us if we wanted that list of 28,000 names, and we said we did. Eva and Mark and I, we went to Elia and Emmanuel, and we said we might need some extra help. We couldn't make 28,000 phone calls, but we would try. And what began as an investigative project with a few of us morphed into a cross-CBC collaboration. Radio Canada's Daniel LeBlanc in Ottawa had already joined the Fifth Estate team. CBC Edmonton pitched in, CBC Vancouver, CBC Victoria, and CBC Kelowna in particular committed significant time and resources to the story, helping us assemble a group of victims on a patio at Earl's who for the first time understood they were not alone. And Elia and Emmanuel put together a formidable Fifth Estate team to join Eva, Mark and me, John, Osama, Loretta, Leanne, unsung heroes like Diana Redigold at the CBC Reference Library, and Francis D'Souza and Seema Patel were cheerleaders along the way. Finally, in preparing these remarks, I asked Mark what stood out most for Mark. And he remarked that since this ward is about the common good, it is remarkable that when the BC Minister of Health had the chance to help out those nurses and frontline workers and give them the reassurance that the government would listen, she walked away and said, "I got a plane to catch." And this from a government in BC that purports to represent the common person. But there's a silver lining to the story. Last month, we got a call from Leslie Warner, the Fernie nurse who was wrongly charged and arrested. After 6 years, her imposter had been identified and now is being charged with identity theft. It was the same woman who you saw that Mark Kelly approached on the streets last summer and told her, "Christina, you can't walk away from this." So Leslie Warner is starting to get her life back, and she credits the Fifth Estate for helping her do that. And that, we believe, is journalism in the service of the common good. Thank you. Thank you.